wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Serene Body Health, a beautiful range of perfumes to awaken your senses and transform your mood with the power of essential oils.
So Serene Body Health sponsored our women's retreat that we had a couple of weeks ago and gifted us the most beautiful essential oil bottles that we used as part of an affirmation and as part of a sensuality practice. And she has a range that obviously has spiritual, psycho-emotional benefits, but also just a perfume option that's additive free. And they're really gorgeous and totally aligned with us. So we really wanted to introduce them to you. And you can find them where, Bridget?
You can find them at serenebodyhealth.com and also on Instagram, Serene Body Health.
And we'd love you to connect with them. On to today's podcast. We are talking today, when we're coaching our children, we're really coaching ourselves. I mean, there's so much story here.
There is so much story.
Actually, I need to remind you to jump onto nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe on the front page.
Yes.
Please make sure you do that because it keeps you in touch with us, lets you know what's going on in our world, what we've put out there, and you can pick and choose on the topics you'd love to dive a little deper into. Okay, coaching our children, we're coaching ourselves, Bridget. What does that mean?
So I think we need to look at this from the perspective of, first of all, like the mirror that our kids offer, right? Like the constant thing that we keep rubbing up against seems to be a constant topic of conversation for our child that we're perceiving is meaningful for us. It's not just kind of random and by accident. It's meaningful for us and whatever we're working through. And so when we find ourselves often trying to coach them through difficult places and their edges, particularly when it's triggering for us, it's actually calling us to bring some of that wisdom that we're trying to impart on them into our own world.
And our own inner child.
So
I have a couple of examples from the last couple of days.
Yes.
Would you like me to start?
I would love you to start.
So I don't know if you've been on our Instagram or Facebook page, but I have had a bit of a doozy of a weekend. And it began Friday with my daughter being the only child that was supporting a particular footy team. And it was footy day at school. And so part of that is the entire school and parents and teachers that are there all gather around in a circle outside or, wherever. And their teams parade for a song. So my daughter is on her own completely. Now, remember, her high value is being social and she has anxiety. So she's here sitting on her own and about to face getting up in front of the entire school, feeling completely on her own. So I saw her over the other side of the courts. So I wandered over. I just sat down next to her and I said, how you doing? You're the only swan here. And she looked, and she didn't even look at me. She looked straight ahead and she kept smiling, which for her is like this plastered, keep it down, I'm good, see world, I'm good.
Yeah.
And all I did was place my hand on her back and she started to crumble. And I could see the inner battle that she was going through. And I was happy for her on one hand to breathe through it because we were talking a lot about softening into her body and making this safe, which is me talking to me. And because also that night I was speaking at the Mornington Peninsula Mums Wine Night, and that was a big step up for me. And the irony in the mirror was not lost on me. Here she is on her own, facing a crowd of people that she really doesn't want to get up and walk in front of. But I want her to.
Yeah, you really do, because she's
strong and she's capable.
Yeah.
Again, which is me.
Yes.
And she's gorgeous and everybody loves her and everybody loves an underdog. So the fact that she's on her own, I knew she would be totally and utterly supported in this space.
Yeah.
And I didn't want her to lose herself in her anxiety.
Yeah, which would have overcome her or ran her had she, let it.
Yes. And had I let it.
And had you let it.
So I'm sitting here watching her. She really doesn't want to get up there. She is fighting tears of emotion. And I can see that different people are tuning into it. And one teacher comes over and offers her an out. You know, you really don't have to do it. And I was like, motherfucker, don't say that I really wanted to have to do it. You know? And here we are, a teacher's offered her an out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I smiled at the teacher. I said, thank you. I think we're going to sit here for a minute. Can you check back in with us? She said, yes, sure. She wanders off. I came back to the breathing with Jade and I looked at her and said, we've just got to make this safe for your brain. And I want you to look around this space and I want you to notice how you know everyone that's here and how you are loved and adored and how you will be celebrated should you choose to get up. And I want you to know that you are strong and capable and you can breathe into your body and you can choose to be courageous in this moment. And the teacher comes back. And in my head, I'm going, get up and go. Yeah. Just get up and go. And in my head, I know, and in my head, I'm even thinking to myself, that's what you need to be saying to yourself, Julie, just fucking get over yourself, get up and go. Which is exactly what I needed to do as well. Yeah. But I was so seeing this mirror and I was thinking, come on, honey, you can do this. And knowing in a way that if she could do this, I could do this. Yes. Because there's a mirror and there's a dynamic there. And in a way, she's playing me out, you know?
Yeah, I do.
So the teacher comes back over and she's still fighting and hanging on to the anxiety and the tears. And the teacher says to her, you know, you don't have to do this. And I'm thinking, please, please, please do it. Please do it. Please do it.
Yeah.
You know? And she couldn't speak. She was fighting tears and she's fighting the inner battle of go, don't go. You know, Mum really wants me to go. I can feel this strength.
Yeah. And
it would be easy to shy away from this moment. And what I don't want is for her to be held captive by her anxiety. Anxiety serves. It serves me.
Yeah.
It serves her in so many ways. But it stops serving at some point when it becomes a hindrance to the life you want to lead.
When it gets in the way of what you know you deeply desire but not willing to give yourself.
Or that you're not willing to break through your own glass ceiling to see what you're capable of. It keeps you small.
Yeah.
And I want more for her. It's taken me 30-odd years to learn that. I want more for her. And I can show her that path. We just have to make something bigger, safer, you know?
Yeah.
And I will support her while she does that. I don't want to support her in keeping herself small. I don't want to support her in getting lost in her emotions. I will support her through them, but I don't want to support her in wallowing and capping off from what she's capable of.
And being run by them. So, you know, allowing them to consume her and run her as opposed to her have a way to understand and unpack them.
Exactly. So each teacher comes back and she can't speak. And I said to Jade, I wonder if you could say to the teacher, I'm feeling really scared, but I'm going to do it. And so she didn't. She looked at the teacher and she just got up and she went. Wow. Oh, this is awesome. And she jogged. So it was kind of as outside on a basketball court. So she jogged, which I thought, again, is genius because as you say, she's moving, she's bouncing left and right. So she's automatically bringing her body and her brain, her left and right hemispheres back online. She's regulating her nervous system. So she jogs down.
She knows
to
what
one
she
end,
needs.
doesn't she?
Yeah.
And she turns around and bang. I just, like my heart just, I don't know even what the word is, blew up like a balloon. Like I just thought, yes. And here she's this blonde hair shining in the, you know, sun like a halo. And I thought, this moment, remember this, because all of these pieces of you that feel fragmented came together and you became bigger. And these are important milestones.
Yeah.
And I so would have and did. That's why she's learning this at 10 and 11, because when she was younger, when she was 5 and 6, I held her in the pain of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was so attached to attachment. And through seeing that pain was still bad and seeing that the way to honour my child was to do only what they perceived they could do. And I don't see the world like that anymore. We know as women that sometimes we only know what's possible when we are inspired by the other women around us. And our parenting is the same. Our children only know what's possible by what you expose them to the possibilities.
Yeah.
And it is possible to do really scary things and for them to be great. And it is possible for you to have an enormous impact, but not if you stay where you're safe. You know?
Yeah. And this is why we're saying when you're coaching your child, you're coaching yourself, because we want so much for them to step up and for them to be able to feel confident in the world. And we ask them to do these things. But we're also asking ourselves to do that, just as you said.
Yes.
And making that safe for them is making it safe for ourselves, and making it safe for ourselves is making it safe for them. This is the dynamic. This is the path of mutual growth that parenting asks of us, and is why it is so rich. And whatever we keep running away from with our children, we're going to keep seeing in various ways. You know, my story today was, you know, we were on our way to a birthday party, and, you know, I know that my son had been really excited about it. And in the car, when we started to talk a bit more about, you know, what it's going to be like, his nerves and his kind of anxiety came up. And with him, it comes up in the form of, I'm not doing it. I don't want to go. It's just a shutdown. You know, it's a really firm no. And, you know, if I was wanting to protect him from pain, you know, maybe I would have second guessed and thought he better not go, or, you know, try to listen to that. But I know him well enough to know that that is a response that he goes into when he no longer perceives something as safe on some level. So in this case, it was that he felt like that the party, he's going to be told what to do and he wouldn't get to play with his friends. These are his school friends that he hasn't seen since, you know, all of the stuff happened with the school. So it's a big kind of deal for him to come together with his really good friends. And he was seeing that somebody was in the way of that, you know, that someone else is going to tell him what to do, and it was like school. You know, and this is powerful for me because, you know, I have this, I wouldn't say anti-authority, but, you know, I have a...
I feel like you could.
No, okay, it's a little bit anti-authority, right? And so I really value, I think I value children's voices, and I value their desire for autonomy and to be respected, and for their desire for independence. And that I, you know, often have issues with this whole system of you know, trying to prescribe, you know, a certain way that children have to be in a system. And so I was like noticing my own, like, you know, feelings coming up about,
what were they? What were your feelings when he was saying that?
Or just thinking, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, right. So this is me, you know, this is me going, I'm facing me with him saying, I don't like school, I don't like being told what to do, which is me. I don't like being told what to do. I'm going to pave my own way. But also hitting the resistance points of simply knowing that that's not how society works. Like, you're going to be supported and challenged all of the time. And any desire for freedom is also illusory because freedom and constraint are always conserved. Like, you're always going to have both freedom and constraint, you know. And if your school's really free, here at home we'll probably get really controlling. You know, or if school gets really controlling, we'll be naturally more free at home. Like, our children are going to experience both all of the time.
I love that so much.
And so I was really sinking into it, and so instead of trying to give him a sense of solution, I was more, you know, like you, talking about, how's that feel? How does it feel to, you know, be in your body and notice those uncomfortable feelings that you're having about this idea that you're not going to get to do what you want to do. And I'm really hearing that you thought it was going to be like a play center and you'd just be able to run with your friends for a few hours and it was going to be really free. And I'm telling you now that when we get there, someone's going to give you some information and they're going to want to show you a few things. And it sounds like you feel like you really don't want to do that, and that you are disappointed because you really just want to play with your friends. And, you know, we know that when we say these things to our children, that we ultimately have an agenda that they're going to do the thing. You know, like, we know that we're taking them to the place of doing the thing. But there's an enormous value in setting up for them and helping them verbalize what it is that they're feeling. Because it's this idea of, we go into fight or flight or freeze when, there's a number of threats that the brain perceives, and one of those is this fear of the unknown. And if you think about a child who's got a set of expectations, and then we're now telling them it's different, they've now got this unknown going on, or they've now got this
threat of
safety
security
is going. And so part of it is setting up that new sense of safety, and also safety in the fact that, look, we're going to do this and we're going to go. But I get that it might be a little bit tricky when we first get there. So, how can we work through that? And so we talk about different ideas as he slowly begins to open up. And it is, that 2 steps forward, 1 step back when we arrive, where, he doesn't want to jump in straight away. That's okay. But we're going to get there. I'm not going to push him, but we're going to get there. And then we got there, right? It took him 5 minutes and then he was unstoppable. But it is finding that that edge to dance with our children that respects them and listens to them, but also knows them well enough to know when the anxiety or when the resistance is a help or a hindrance, to what they're seeking, or the outcome they're seeking. Because this is what you and I talk about, is that how much do we honour their values and choices and respect them, and how much are we, in doing that, enabling, avoidance, and enabling
of the very thing, because we all know the thing you resist the most is where your greatest growth lies. So in a way, it's about resourcing yourself to build up almost the toolkit or the armorage or whatever you want to call it, to be able to enter that battle.
Yeah. And it is just as much for us setting up that safety within our own body, within our own, we do the work in order to make it safe for them. In your case with Jade, I have no doubt that you were doing an enormous amount of breathing into your own body, grounding into yourself, in order for you to be able to respond rather than react to what was going on for her. Because reaction would be pushing her. It would be, well, too bad because we've just got to do it this way. So, you've got to do it, or whatever it would have looked like. Whereas responding is you doing all the things that you're going to ask your child to do, but doing that for yourself first, around the breathing, around the presence.
Because you're still in dynamic. Whatever you're doing for yourself, you are regulating your child in the process of doing that, because you are so enmeshed energetically, emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Yeah, with all of those things, yes, but your nervous systems are speaking to each other. And, a child's nervous system is most patterned by their primary caregiver. That's how they pattern themselves. And so when we learn how to pattern ourselves, we are doing so much work already before we've even opened our mouth. And begin to enter into a dialogue with our child.
I have another one for you.
I want to hear that.
So I posted this morning, again, this was about yesterday, I think. And it was with my 5-year-old who I saw was hanging on for dear life to screen time. I've got a bugbear about screen time. And so, I'm always parenting myself around screen time. Anyway, they'd had screen time. It was time. I'm quite strict on screen time. It's time to put it away and come back into the fold of community and socialization and all the shit you don't want to face, because screen is an excellent way to numb.
Yeah.
Fantastic way to be busy and occupied, so you don't really have to think or feel the things that are in your body. And that's one of the things I hate about screen time, because I have a high value on embodiment.
And connection and community.
Right?
Yeah.
So I know it's playing out for me as well. Anyway, she didn't want us to shut the screen off. It was but just one more show, but just 2 more shows, but just,
The desperation.
The pleading, and I was like, nah, this Band-Aid's got to be ripped off.
Yeah.
So I said, nah, there's no more. I'm shutting this computer. And out came a fury. And so I sat with that, and then she's worked out that at some point, we do a way back to balance. We find a calm and a talk, and then we, are willing to be back in the fold of, and sometimes they will, come back to the activity they were doing or whatever the case may be. So she was having quite an intense tantrum. She didn't want to talk about it. So I was like, okay, well, you're not fully back yet. All right. So we're hanging in here a bit more. Then all of a sudden she just goes deadpan quiet and she's like, I'm good. And I was like, okay.
What was that?
And she stomps out and she plonks herself down at our current camping table and proceeds to eat. I'd made a smoothie earlier in the day and we'd frozen it, so it was a smoothie ice cream. Proceeds to slurp and shove this spoon in her mouth. And I was sat down right in front of her and I was watching her and she was avoiding eye contact and she's looking out the corner of her eye and she's like making her mouth as busy, like there's as small a space of time as there could possibly be between slurps. She's hugging her bottle of apple juice that she'd gotten earlier at a party. You know, I was like, how much sweetness and preoccupation with sweetness are you doing right now? Because again, it's another form of numbing.
Yeah.
And I was watching myself, who grew up being parented by an emotional eater, who became an emotional eater, who was fought tooth and nail most of my life, again, another 30 odd years, to work out
what was really hunger, what
was emotional hunger that I was reading because it was the only language I had as physical hunger. And that is her.
Yeah.
She is that mirror for me. And I was sitting here watching her emotionally eat and I found myself going, wow, this is me. I get that. I can still hear in my ears my mum going, I just need chocolate and I'm just going to eat a whole block of it, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And I could feel into all those moments and I was watching her going, please come back from that. And I thought, this is another moment. But I know the second I take that crux away from her, I have to be ready for another fury.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we teeter as parents, particularly when we're not feeling strong or capable or resourced enough to deal with whatever comes. And our kids know if we're not safe enough to do that with. But so I took a moment to center myself, to check in with myself and go, have I got it in me? Because I could leave her if I don't.
And I think that's an important point to make. If you don't, you should leave it. Is my feeling, because
you're doing no one any favors.
And it's. I mean, we all have things that we choose to numb with.
Yes.
And if we cannot support our child in a way that is healing for them to remove that crutch, then I think we just create more layers of it. You know, if you try and snatch it away, right, as opposed to creating safety for her to release and come back into herself.
Right.
Let's talk about how you did that.
So I centered my own body. So I was watching her, looking at the mirror, reflecting back on my life and where I'd come from with emotional eating and how I had felt or feel about my body based on the fact that I would use it as a trash can, and which kind of feeds into all these layers of abuse over the years that I perceive and that I attach to emotional eating, because it's forms of abuse. I can see myself doing that. Yeah. Certainly not a temple, and it's certainly not having a toolkit, a support system, or an acknowledgement of my real hunger. And I acknowledged that within myself, and I guess in a way soothed myself and went, but I'm a grown woman now and I understand where that came from and I understand why. And I can love that enough to say thank you, but I need my daughter to be on another path to me. I need her to have tools I didn't have. And I can do that by loving the wound that I have and showing her the wisdom from that.
And loving that really looks like not wishing you never had it, seeing how it
not
served
hating
you.
It. Not demonizing it.
Yeah, but being willing to allow it to transform.
Yeah. So did that first, then went, okay, regulate your body. So I made sure I was breathing in my body, feeling centered, feeling grounded. And then I was like, right, I'm good. And so then I looked at her and she still wouldn't look at me, and I put my hand on the container. I could see her fiercely, cling onto it. And I put my other hand on her hand that had the spoon, and I said, I can tell right now that you've got some really big feelings and that this is feeling really good. But I really want you to know that I want you to do something and choose something other than eating your feelings down into your body. and I'm asking you to stop eating so that we can talk about what's going on here or just be with what's here. So I'm going to take the spoon and the smoothie and we will put it away for later. And she pretty much threw the spoon at me and screamed, and bang, we're off again on another emotional tirade. And in the end, if you've watched social media, you'll know this story anyway. Flash forward another 15 minutes and I used laughter actually this time. I don't know if you saw it. I thought I was the irony, like the world is always talking to us. She shoved her bum in my face at one point because I'm kneeling down trying to talk to her, and I was like, yep, I'm an asshole. Our world is always talking to us. And so shifted it, because you can laugh things out or you can cry things out. But with laughter, it's not okay to be tickling for a response, because that's still a type of control over another person's body. So with Kids for Laughter Release, you're really seeking to follow the breadcrumbs of where their laughter feels uncontrollable, and you just keep going there. And so, butts is always a funny thing. Farts are always going to be funny. Yeah. And so we kind of went there, and we moved through. We just played through that for a little while before she was back to eye contact with me. And then I said to her, do you think maybe you've got some big feelings from kinder today? And she was like, no, I don't have any big feelings. And on it went. And I was like, oh, for God's sake. Okay. So we sat with that a little bit more. She comes back to eye contact and said, did you happen to feel sad and angry at kinder today? And she looked at me and all of a sudden she goes, yes, I did feel sad and angry at kinder today. And I was like, fucking hell, why couldn't we have done this half an hour ago? Like in my head I'm going, oh, here we are. And I smiled at her and went, really? You want to tell me about that? That took a lot of work to get to that.
To get there. Oh, man.
But at the same time, I'm like, how fabulous to have a toolkit, really, as a parent, to know to not read surface behaviour for what it is.
Yeah.
And to be able to admittedly go through a very long process sometimes to get to the bottom of that, knowing that the gift of that is that she's back in her body and she's back connected to the family, and that creates a completely different dynamic within the household rather than walking on eggshells, teetering around everyone, explosion central, trying to keep a lid on it, pandering, teetering, no one's needs are getting met properly,
just trying to smooth over.
There's ease.
Not kind of provoke anybody.
There's ease there in that family home, but that doesn't look like peace. That looks like war and peace. But I can consciously choose the war and be present for it and tooled up for it, or the war can smack me from all sides, right?
It's kind of like, I think about it with my daughter and, how close she gets to bedtime often, and, she begins to look for crutches. She begins to look for, I want strawberries and I want, macadamias, and I want, and she circles through all of the things that she wants because she's looking for the thing that's going to help her try to feel better. And there's so many different ways in our days that we can, easily meet that because we don't have capacity to go deeper. But yet when we do, and when we don't shy away from it, and feel into our resistance, but also find our willingness to enter it and do exactly what you've done with Lola, it does create that greater sense of opening and connection within everybody. Because when everyone in the family knows that we generally try to meet this, not resist this, it creates that sense of safety that all feelings are okay. Not that we don't have these big feelings, but we have them and we know how to move through them.
So now is probably also a good time as we wrap up, Bridge, to mention that we do have our aligned parenting that is coming up for a live round at the end of this week. Aligned parenting gives you 4 modules of content, which is online video content, and a workbook to work through. So that's grounding you in the philosophies in a more concrete way than perhaps what you would pick up from the podcast. We then have 2 live rounds a year, and that's where Bridget and I commit to facilitating you, knowing that you have this base of knowledge where we sit and philosophies and underpinnings to then start actually applying it to your life, your family, your child's behaviour, your family dynamic. And that's what we seek to do in those live rounds.
I think the family dynamic piece is a really big one, because there is so much out there in terms of conscious parenting, but not a lot that actually looks at the dynamic at play and also the roles that each parent can play, and how the more if a mother has a strong value on conscious parenting and gentleness, and likely the partner might not always share those same beliefs, and how you can make that, how you can see that unit as a cohesive whole working towards everybody's greatest fulfillment, as opposed to being purely about challenge.
So please check it out at nourishingthemother.com.au/online programs, aligned parenting, or follow. We're all over socials at the moment, so please follow and click any of those links. But we would love to have you dive really deeply into applying it to your life. There's nothing we like more than being able to create change and have conversations that are deep and meaningful about parenting, because that certainly lights us up. And I'm sure if you're listening, it lights you up too.
Absolutely.
So we want to see you feeling empowered and spectacular in your motherhood. So, Bridge, to connect with you,
suburbansandcastles.com, and you, Jules,
is thepleasurenutritionist.com. And I do want to mention that I am taking, I don't know what the word is. I was about to say enrollments. It's not really, but if it's expressions of interest for a women's circle that I'm looking at opening for a select group of 12 women to carry through with a 12-month commitment to uncovering where you're at in your world and sinking deeper into your body and your heart in a really safe space. So if you're interested in that, please drop me a line.
And it is in person, and it's located in Bayside, Melbourne. So if you're in that area, you should jump on that.
Yes, pleasurenutritionist.com. And
don't forget to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we will see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.